A book published over 100 years ago claimed you have a second brain in the pit of your stomach. It called this brain a sun, a central point that distributes energy to your entire body and quietly governs your reality. Modern science shows that book was almost exactly right. We're going to decode this strange old text and map its mystical ideas onto the physical nerves you can see on an anatomy chart. And you'll discover a biological system you've been using your entire life, a system that powers your gut feelings that you can learn to consciously control. The book is The Master Key System, written in 1916 by Charles Haanel. It was part of a wave of thinking called the New Thought movement, a philosophy blending metaphysics, positive thinking, and a uniquely American brand of self-reliance. To a modern reader, much of the book sounds like pure magical thinking. It speaks of vibrations, universal mind, and the law of attraction. It's easy to dismiss it as historical artifact, a piece of early 20th century optimism that has little to do with the physical world. Yet, buried in its 24 lessons is a recurring, specific, and very strange anatomical claim. Haanel insists that the central point of your entire being is the solar plexus. He describes it as a nerve center located behind the stomach. He calls it the sun of the body, arguing that just as the sun radiates light and energy to the planets, this nerve center radiates vital energy out to every organ and cell. He claimed this was the seat of the subconscious mind, the part of you that operates below the level of conscious thought. All involuntary functions of the body, your heartbeat, your digestion, your breathing while you sleep, were said to be controlled from this abdominal headquarters. Fear, according to Haanel, was a direct attack on this central sun, causing its energy to retreat and leading to physical illness. Courage and positive thought, in his view, strengthened this center, causing its energy to radiate powerfully, creating health and vitality. He wrote, "The solar plexus is the point at which the part meets with the whole, where the finite becomes infinite, where the uncreate becomes create." The language is lofty, almost religious. He was clearly describing something more than a simple bundle of nerves. He saw it as a spiritual organ, a connection point between the physical body and some universal source of power. He prescribed exercises where you would sit still, focus your attention on this spot in your abdomen, and consciously will it to radiate energy. Critics, both then and now, would call this pseudoscience. They point out that the brain in your skull controls everything, and the idea of a second subconscious brain in your gut is pure fantasy. For decades, that was the final word. The solar plexus, as a concept, was relegated to the world of mysticism and alternative health. But then neurologists started looking closer at the human gut, and they found something that changed the entire map of the human nervous system. They found a brain, a complex, independent and powerful network of neurons woven throughout the walls of our digestive system. It's called the enteric nervous system, or the NS, and it is shockingly complex. It contains over 100 million neurons. That is more neurons than you have in your entire spinal cord. It has more than the peripheral nervous system. It's a vast, intricate web of processing power that manages the entire digestive process from start to finish. This system is so sophisticated that it can operate with complete autonomy. If you were to sever the primary nerve connecting the gut to the brain, the gut would continue to function on its own. It would digest food, absorb nutrients, and manage waste, all without any input from your head. This is why scientists began calling it the second brain. It uses more than 30 different neurotransmitters, just like the brain in your skull. In fact, 90% of your body's serotonin, the famous mood-regulating chemical, is produced and stored in your gut. Let that sink in. The chemical most associated with feelings of well-being and happiness is primarily a product of your digestive tract. This second brain senses, thinks, and remembers. It learns from experience, establishing preferences and aversions. That feeling of revulsion you get when you smell a food that once made you sick, that's your enteric nervous system remembering. Now, here is where the story pivots. The largest and most complex cluster of nerves in this entire enteric system, its central hub, is a dense network of ganglia located right behind the stomach. Its modern anatomical name is the celiac plexus, and the common, everyday name for the celiac plexus, the name doctors and laypeople have used for centuries, is the solar plexus. The location matches perfectly. The old mystical text pointed to a specific spot in the body and called it a sun, a central distributor. A century later, neuroscience maps the human body and finds a massive, independent neural network, a second brain, with its headquarters in that exact same spot. This is an uncomfortable coincidence, but the connection gets deeper. Harnell's claim was that the solar plexus distributes energy and controls the subconscious. Is that just a fortunate metaphor? Or is there a physical structure that actually does that? The two brains, the one in your head and the one in your gut, are in constant communication. They are connected by a massive biological data cable. This cable is the vagus nerve. It's the longest cranial nerve in your body, wandering from the brainstem down through your neck, chest, and into your abdomen, touching nearly every major organ along the way. The word vagus comes from the Latin for wandering, which is a perfect description. It's a wanderer, an information scout, connecting the central command in your skull to the operational hub in your gut. But here is the most important detail. This communication is a two-way street, and the traffic is heavily skewed in one direction. About 80 to 90% of the nerve fibers in the vagus nerve are dedicated to sending information from the gut up to the brain. Think about what that means. The vast majority of the conversation between your two brains consists of your gut telling your head what's going on. Your second brain is constantly sending status reports. It reports on the state of your digestion, the presence of nutrients, levels of inflammation, and even the health of the trillions of microbes living in your gut. Your brain receives this fire hose of information and translates it into what you experience as your mood. A healthy, calm gut sends signals of safety and well-being. An inflamed, irritated gut bombards the brain with signals of distress, which can manifest as anxiety, brain fog, or even depression. This is the biological reality of a gut feeling. It's your enteric nervous system detecting a state of affairs and reporting it upstream through the vagus nerve. That sudden deep feeling that something is wrong, or that a decision is right, that's your second brain processing information from its environment, the internal environment of your body, and sending a high-priority alert to headquarters. This is the mechanism of distribution Harnell was trying to describe. The solar plexus, the celiac plexus, is the central station. The vagus nerve is the distribution line, and the energy it distributes is biochemical information, a constant stream of neural signals that profoundly shape your conscious experience. Remember a time you felt that sickening knot in your stomach before a difficult conversation? Or the feeling of butterflies before speaking in public? You were feeling your enteric nervous system and the vagus nerve in action. You were feeling the direct physical connection between thought and gut. Fear in your brain triggers a hormonal cascade that your second brain immediately registers, altering gut motility and sensation. The system works in a feedback loop. A stressful thought disrupts the gut, and a disrupted gut sends stress signals back to the brain, reinforcing the feeling of anxiety. They feed each other. The old mystics were trying to describe this loop with the language they had. They called it an interruption in the flow of vital energy from the body's sun. We call it dysregulation of the gut-brain axis. It's the same phenomenon, viewed through a different lens. But Harnell's most radical claim was that this process could be consciously controlled, that through sheer focus you could change the output of the solar plexus and by extension change your physical and mental state. He thought you could just decide to make it radiate positive energy. That part seems impossible. And yet, we now know you can directly and consciously influence this system. You have a physical control lever for the gut-brain axis. It's your breath, specifically slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing. The vagus nerve passes right through your diaphragm, the large muscle at the base of your lungs. When you take short, shallow breaths from your chest, which is characteristic of a stress response, the diaphragm barely moves. But when you breathe slowly and deeply, allowing your belly to expand, your diaphragm contracts and descends. This movement gently stimulates the vagus nerve. It's a form of physical massage for the primary nerve in your parasympathetic nervous system. Activating the vagus nerve in this way is like flipping a switch from fight or flight to rest and digest. It slows your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, and sends a powerful signal of safety from your body up to your brain. It tells your conscious mind that the threat has passed. You can physically interrupt the anxiety loop using your own muscles. Doctors today use this principle in advanced medical treatments. Vagus nerve stimulation, or VNS, is a therapy where a small device like a pacemaker is implanted to send mild electrical pulses to the vagus nerve. It's used to treat epilepsy and treatment-resistant depression. It works. Directly stimulating this nerve can fundamentally alter brain activity. Now, look again at the exercises in the Master Key system. Hanel instructs his students to sit in a relaxed position, become still, and focus their attention on the solar plexus. Many of his instructions implicitly guide the student towards slow, rhythmic breathing to achieve this state of stillness. He was, without knowing the neurological mechanism, teaching a method for improving vagal tone. He was guiding people to consciously activate their parasympathetic nervous system by focusing on the very part of the body where its central hub is located. He had the right action but the wrong explanation. He called it commanding your subconscious mind, or letting the solar plexus radiate. A modern physiologist would call it down-regulating the sympathetic nervous system through diaphragmatic respiration. The effect is the same. The feeling is the same. It's a feeling of calm authority spreading from the center of your body outward. Hanel was an intuitive biologist, working a century ahead of his time. He saw the effects of a system he couldn't name and created a metaphysical framework to explain it. The solar plexus of the mystics was never just a metaphor. It was a pre-scientific term for a very real and very powerful piece of our biology. It's the enteric nervous system, our second brain in the gut. The energy it distributes is a constant flow of biochemical data through the vagus nerve, data that shapes our moods, our thoughts, and our health. And the conscious control he spoke of is the very real ability to use our breath to intervene in this system, to calm the storm, and to guide our bodies back to a state of equilibrium. The language of vibrations and universal mind can feel alienating today. It's easy to dismiss the entire package because of its wrapping. But beneath the metaphysical gloss, Hanel and others in the New Thought movement were pointing to a profound biological truth. Our state of mind and our physical state are locked in a constant, intimate dialogue. And the center of that conversation, the switchboard through which most of the messages pass, is located right behind your stomach. The old map was drawn with strange symbols and poetic names, but the territory it described was real. It makes you wonder what other ancient maps we've dismissed, just because we haven't yet invented the tools to read them. And this direct link between the gut and brain also explains why the very food you eat can chemically alter your mood, which is a different kind of rabbit hole entirely.